Welcome, salams, and namaskar. This is Dr. Ghulam Dastagir, and today we'll talk about another interesting topic related to spirituality. And this question often plagues a number of spiritual aspirants, and all of us who are walking or trying to walk this path towards self development, self improvement, and ultimately self realization. And the question is, where are we on this path of spiritual progress, on the spiritual journey? Are there any milestones? Is there any way to know where I am and if I'm progressing? And in general, the answer is it's kind of a little tricky to self assess because obviously self assessment requires the individual look within, and that can bring about a number of biases into play as well. So, in general, if you know someone and if you respect someone's opinion in this matter, you think that person is evolved spiritually or has some expertise in the field, their opinion can be a very good assessment of where you are or whether you're progressing on this journey. But in the absence of that, what can be done? So, to answer that question, we created on essentialspirituality.org a spirituality quiz based on some empirical research and data. And so that quiz will give you an idea of where you are and what you might want to do moving further. It also will give you a typology and help you understand what kind of a spiritual temperament you have. It's kind of similar to a personality test, but not exactly similar. It has certain differences and its principles are quite different. But nevertheless, it gives you a general idea, and which is all we can expect at this point in time. But there are different personality types, and similarly, there are different spiritual types, perhaps. So, for example, one might be spiritually a tree or a bird or a tortoise, and so on. And so it's kind of interesting, it's kind of fun. The quiz itself takes just no more than maybe 3 to 5 minutes at the most. Take it and see where you stand and see what maybe you can do going further and learn about yourself. It's a great tool for self discovery and self assessment. Having said that, there are other ways as well to sort of assess and get an idea of where we stand on the spiritual journey. And perhaps the most basic criteria for this, and it's well known amongst seekers, especially in the traditional Indian paths. And the idea is that of mumukshutva. It simply means how much desire does one have to realize oneself. That is a very basic criteria. Are you burning with the desire to improve? Are you burning with the desire to know yourself? Are you burning with the desire to be blissed out? Now remember, there's one thing to just have the desire as such, but the desire is true if it expresses itself in consistent spiritual practice. So, if you're doing a lot of spiritual practice on a daily, consistent basis, then that is indicative of a very strong spiritual desire. There are other astrological portents, for example, that can also give you an idea of your spiritual potential. And towards that, if you have any questions, again, use our website. We also do those kinds of consultations, and we can also use other esoteric methods, including what's called istikhara in the Sufi system. So, feel free, get in touch with us, and hopefully, you can have a pretty decent idea of where you are and how you can progress further as well. Moving ahead, there is another way also whereby you can sort of judge where you currently stand and whether you've made any progress and how you've been progressing. So, for that, all you need to do is take some time and try to assess as objectively as possible. Perhaps do a spiritual exercise, maybe some breath work, calm your mind down, and independently and as possible, as non prejudicially as possible, assess yourself as to have you improved in different aspects of life. And what I mean by that is spirituality tends to have certain side effects. If you are deeply spiritual and if you are engaging in a variety of spiritual practices, you'll normally see certain side effects that go with that. That can include an improvement in your disposition. So you become more pleasant in disposition because you feel more pleasant inside. What I noticed, for example, is as I continued on the spiritual path and as my teacher taught me, I went ahead and did spiritual practices. It sort of took the edge off my personality in some ways. It just made me more stable. I would not feel the swings or ups and downs in my moods. If I found something that was sort of really that brought about a degree of joy I was enthusiastic about, immediately there was a spike. And if something happened that was not so great, then obviously I didn't feel so good. But that has changed over a period of time. Now there is more stability, and towards circumstances in general in life, I feel more stable, and it's just natural. It's not something that I deliberately try to do. It just happens over a period of time. The emotional state becomes much more stable. Another side effect of spiritual practice and spirituality is how much connection you feel with others, how much connection and empathy you feel for all things around you, from people around you, the relationships that you are in, whether they're professional relationships, whether they're personal relationships, whether it's towards even creatures around you, the entire planet around you, the cosmos, even inanimate objects. Do you feel compassion? Do you feel empathy? Do you feel connection with them? And you'll notice this the most bizarre things. You feel a sense of awe, a sense of joy, a sense of awe, a sense of perhaps deep spiritual emotion. And this is not like regular emotion. It's just for no reason at all. You might find one day that you have great tears of affection towards a tree, or towards a cat, or towards a person walking on the street. And where does this come from? And so this is just the spirit expressing itself in the way that it knows best, which is through different spiritual experience, something that is relatively out of the ordinary. There is no stimulus as such to produce such a reaction. Mentally, you know that. There's no reason for you to feel this way, but you're still feeling it. And or normally it's a very pleasant state. There are other ideas, there are other symptoms as well that indicate that you're walking along or you're moving along the path of spirituality and spiritual purpose. You can have very pleasant dreams, dreams that are very indicative, very specific, dreams that can also regularly occur to you and give you portentions of things that are to happen. Or you can have just different spiritual experiences, things that are relatively out of the ordinary. So, for example, you might smell beautiful fragrances in the most unlikely places. So you're sitting somewhere, maybe in your office or at home in your room, and all of a sudden you get this extremely pleasant fragrance of roses or some beautiful flower, or of sandalwood or whatever. And you know that there is no reason for this. You're not wearing any perfume. There's no perfume close by. There is no incense sticks or anything of that nature close by. But you're still experiencing this amazing fragrance. And so these are some of the indications, and perhaps amongst these, and some of them can be rather fantastic. But leaving the dramatic and the fantastic aside, I would think that the best indication of spiritual progress is how you feel from inside and how your behavior has changed. If there is more empathy, there's more love, there's less disturbance in your mind, there's less uh, instability in your emotions, and so on, and others notice it, then that's a very clear cut indication that yes, you are moving along this path. So these are some of the things that, in conclusion, we can say give us some idea and help us assess whether we are progressing spiritually or not. And so, again, just to recap, use the spirituality quiz. It's called the Universal Spirituality Quiz, available on our website www.essentialspirituality.org. It'll also take you to an article that's linked to your spiritual score and your spiritual type. It's fun to learn and assess yourself in that sense. It doesn't take. If you have any questions about where you stand spiritually, or if you have any questions that you'd like to know some answers, please visit essentialspirituality.org, fill out our form, our contact form, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. There is no charge. So with that, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope to have more videos for you as we progress. Assalamu alaikum. Namaskar.